Everybody. Hello. I hope this video finds you well. Today, and this is a request, I get lots of requests, and I'm going to answer one of my requests right now. And I'm going to talk about um, some of my adventures. These, for the most part, most of my experiences took part in the late 1980s and into the decade in the 1990s. And this was when I was anchoring Worldlines. And when I was anchoring Worldlines, my personal Worldline shifted. And apparently, some of you find that interesting when I describe what it was like when it was shifted. Um, um, Shifting, for the most part, is barely noticeable. Okay, barely. Uh, you may have 45 M&Ms in a packet of M&Ms, and the Worldline shifts, and now you have 42. Okay, they're just really, really small adjustments. Most people don't notice anything. But as my Worldline was shifting and I was moving and cycling back and forth, uh, larger shifts were noticeable. And I did things which I refer to as deep dives and all this. But before I get involved in this, I want to say a couple of things. I want to say a couple of words about the requests. I got a request here to ask the domain commander about Jesus, and I initiated that and began to get a discussion going. This is a fact. When these things happen, I mean, I could be doing all sorts of things, and at that time I was getting on a bus, and there was a lot of stuff back and forth, and I lost a lot of the stuff. So I have to apologize for that. I'll get back and revisit that one and do it when I can sit down and record stuff. I've had requests. One particular individual, he's no longer a member of the Patron. I guess he got everything he wanted. He wanted to know the ins and outs of the DIY teleporter design, which I think is a bit of a cheat. Where affirmations work just as well on a personal basis. But as an engineer, I find the DIY aspect of teleportation and dimensional travel fascinating, and so it's not a hardship on my part. I will continue to write about these kinds of things, whether you guys like them or not. It's just something I personally am interested in. And if you're interested in it, so be it, right? I have to get a little bit more detailed there. We're going to talk a little bit about the mathematics involved and stuff like that, which might be a turn off to some of you, so I try to keep things pretty simple. Okay, now continuing on this spiel, this discussion, this talk about when I was doing Worldline adventures, and really the word is an adventure. A lot of times, now, you have to understand, I was doing this, I had a bunch of cats at the house, and my cats knew what the hell was going on, which is very interesting, because that goes along with the idea of a matrix, or similar to that is the hive, where the quanta is interfaced and interacted and shared. And seriously, sometimes I'll be in a deep dive and the cat will look at me like, what are you doing way over here? But that's just the way it is, or the way it was, the way it is. I haven't done any anchoring or major Worldline shifts, template shifts in a while. Anyways, in this video, and I'm sorry for rambling. You guys don't want to hear me rambling. I know you don't want to hear me rambling, but I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my I'm going to call them adventures, and I don't know what you'll get out of it. Okay, but I think you'll find them interesting. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Let's look at them. Okay. For the most part, I think I covered the major points in my writings about these deep dives. The most notable ones were a deep dive where I went, where really everything changed to a what would have happened kind of scenario, which I don't know why I was thrown out so far off the track out there, but I learned a lot about the government, or maybe business or something upon that line. Maybe I don't know what I learned from it. I don't know, but it was interesting. Um, uh, the and of course I wrote about and talked too about the Spicy World line. You don't forget those things. I mean, you haven't lived until you had spicy Cheerios or Magna ice cream, Magma ice cream. Um, but but I want to talk a little bit about some of the less interesting, world line switches, and for the most part, when I would do a switch, the items that would change would be very trivial. One world line, I'm normally wearing shoes that are tied, and another world line, I'm wearing shoes that are being held with Velcro. I even had a world line where the shoelaces were like rubber bands. I mean, they weren't rubber bands. They were like cloth rubber bands that was in a loop and was tied there, and you could tighten them. I was on a world line where most of the world lines, my trousers, my pants always had zippers, but every now and then it'd be on one that would have buttons, and that's a little discerning. Almost all the world lines, I'm wearing a belt, but every now and then you pop up with suspenders. Not rainbow suspenders, I mean suspenders. It was pretty unusual, but that's okay. Most of my jobs at that time, now you got to remember, while I'm doing all this stuff, all right, I'm living a normal life as an engineer or a manager, all right. But these world lines were swapping in and out because of my membership in Majestic, and that was my role, and I just went with it. For the most part, it was not invasive, but it was a bit disconcerting. You go to work and you're wearing a yellow tie, and then you're at the desk and you realize you're wearing a red paisley bow tie. And the disconcerting thing about that is I didn't know how to tie a bow tie. This wasn't a clip-on. All right. So when I undid it, I had to remember how to do it. And then the next day, because this was a couple day long event, I had to ask my wife to tie it for me. She looked at me like, what? Look at me like, what? You can't tie the bow. Anyway, she did it for me. Thank God. I was about ready to just call in sick and not show up. And it can be a little discerning like that. I mentioned I had an interview. I think it was Super Soldier or something, and they asked me about who was the president. Most of the presidents pretty much tracked what we're experiencing here, except in the real deep dives. Though for a while there, the there was this gal by the name of Geraldine Ferraro who was president for a while, and I wish I could say something about politics and what it was like right there, but I don't really see any difference between that person and that, which gives me this idea, this impression that all these presidents are just figureheads. They really have no policy. They talk about their policy, but what they implement is something beyond their control. And that is just my massive massive opinion on this matter. So take it as you will. Okay, just take it as you will. I really don't think that they had any power. I still don't. I think if you look at my experiences, you can imply or extrapolate some of the attributes associated with these anchoring events. This idea that the presidents are powerless is perhaps an attribute of this chain or train of apparent world-line templates that I am setting upon. Somewhere else in the template, perhaps, is one where the presidents are powerful and are able to implement whatever policies they personally believe in. But right now, the opinion and the impression I get is they're powerless figureheads. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. Also, something else I want to make note of, even though I've always been interested in space and UFOs and stuff like that, my interest on this kind of subject really flatlined when I was doing Majestic stuff. I had no interest in it whatsoever. It's almost like, okay, I know what the hell's going on. I don't need to read any of this stuff. So this guy sees this UFO over here. Oh, so this guy saw this weird thing over there. Like I really didn't want to know about it. And that brings me up to another subject, is that there was a lot of chatter going on in the communication comms. It's like, what did they used to call those things? They used to call them a toll line, where you had a phone, and the phone line was all shared between different homes, and you could sometimes listen to other people's conversations. And it was sort of like that. I was kind of able to pick up on this and that. Sometimes it just drove me absolutely nuts, bonkers, but you listen to it, and you're able to tune it out. I mean, it's going on, but you can tune it out. One way or the other, you can tune it out. During the period of time when I was active in Majestic, this is damn straight, I had no desire to drink, no desire to do drugs, no desire to do any radical activity, no desire to get into any kind of trouble or criminal activity or anything else like that. I was very, very, very narrow-minded, very focused, very, very well-behaved. And that continued up until my retirement. I was just very, very, very much a straight arrow. My life didn't get interesting and spicy until after I was retired, because they said, okay, it's almost like those limitations were lifted, or maybe I deprogrammed myself during the problem with Lester. Anyways, so I was very, very low key to everybody else. I was just a manager in a high-tech company, managing scientists and R&D centers and stuff like that. When in reality, I was living two lives, and my other life was just something that I'm talking about now, this other life, where I'm moving, my world line, my surroundings were constantly changing. And as my surroundings were constantly changing, the way I thought about them and felt about them was also being changed, and that was being monitored. My thoughts and my emotions were being monitored as my environment was changing. They knew everything. They knew if I had an asshole boss. They knew if I was being cheated on a burger. They knew if somebody was stealing gas from my car. They knew everything I was experiencing. And as they changed, as I try to describe it to you, the mechanism of switching these world lines was is more complicated, and I don't want to talk too much about that. But anyways, as these things were switching, I was experiencing things, and those experiences were being monitored. So I came to the conclusion, because they were real to me, that they really exist somewhere out on the template. It is possible, I don't believe it, but it is possible that these other experiences were nothing more than stage props for me to experience. I don't believe it, but it could have well been that way. And the reason why I say that while it could be, I don't think it is because I could tell my kitty cat's reactions. The longer you do this, the more sensitive you get. I'm not saying that I have any innate ESP ability over and above any other normal person. I think I'm just about as normal as people go. I was just a high achiever in school, and I was in the right place at the right time after studying the right stuff and doing everything. I'm just a normal guy, but over time your experiences change who you are. If you are working in the coal mines for 40 years, you're going to be a different person than, say, somebody who sits on the board of directors for 40 years. Your experiences changes who you are, and I became very, very sensitive to the thoughts of others. Not that I could read people's minds, though I have friends that think I can. It's not that I can read people's minds so much as my EQ, my emotional content, or my ability to sense the waves of other people, whatever you want, is higher than it used to be prior to my being a member of Majestic. And therefore, being a sensitive person, over time, I began to sense the functions and purposes behind these switching events and these anchoring events. And it helped me to understand why and what is going on. That's my analysis of them. But, I don't know. I never had an experience where it was summer and then suddenly there was a change and it was winter. Never. I never had an experience where the weather was radically different. I had somewhere it was cloudy and then it was light rain. I had somewhere it was sunny and then it suddenly became stormy. I was never, that I can recall. There might have been one or two times where suddenly, but I don't recall any summer to winter, spring to fall kind of big changes. I don't recall any of that stuff. I can tell you that irregardless of the world line switch, they are just as real. The food tastes the same. I mean, the food you can taste, sense, see, everything. It's all the same. None of that changes. Your ability to sense things does not change. There was a couple times where I was in world lines where I was using coins more than I was using dollar bills. And on a couple of them, the coins felt really, really heavy. I don't know why they felt really heavy, but they just felt, you got a ton of money in your hand, money. They just felt really, really heavy. Maybe the coins were thicker or weighed more, or maybe had lead in them for all I know. I don't know. some of the changes were really weird. This was about in the mid '90s, say in the middle of my early to middle of my adventures. Um, the girls, they had this little pens that they would carry. It was like a fashion thing. These little pens that they would carry in their purses. Of course, women always have, lipstick and makeup and stuff that they keep in their purses. But this was a little pen, a little like this. This is a regular pen, okay? But imagine something half as big, a little tiny pen, and they would keep these womanly pens in their purse. Then they would jot things down. Strange. I don't see that anywhere. I haven't seen any of that anywhere in any of the world lines or anything since. It was just a couple of world line switches, and that's very popular, and then it's gone. Some of the things I will tell you, some things are really irksome. Like entire verses of songs don't exist on this world line. I've mentioned before how We Are the Champions um, has a different ending now than it was that I grew up with, and some of these other things that these just minor changes. To most people, it's nothing, you know. But to me, yeah, I notice these things, and I think other people are noticing them too. I was able to notice them because this is my theory. It's a theory. This is my theory. It's only a theory, so I don't know if this is true. But it's almost like the shadows that are on this template that I'm on right now. The participating quanta of the shadows were kind of dragged around with me as I moved. And a lot of you guys out there who are experiencing a world where Fred Flintstone never smoked will recall the television show where he was smoking all the time. Yeah, he was. He used to have this Fred Flintstone little stone lighter that he would press, and two two sticks would rub and a fire would show up. And he'd be puffing away on his cigarette. And he'd go, Wilma! But in this world line, there's no videos at all of him ever smoking. There's none of them. He's never smoked in this world line. It'd be really surprising if he did, I tell you what. And so I know you guys want to know about my adventures, and all I can say is they're pretty boring, okay? We're talking about things like Fred Flintstone, or these other things, rock songs and other popular music and stuff that seem to be subtly different, and people are saying, what's the matter with you? Everybody knows that. And then they say something here, and I was like, then why do I remember it this way? Why do I remember it this way? Well, it's because I watched the Switch. There was a couple of major substrate under each world line is like these. There's a world line template, and there's a sub template, and there's a sub template under that. Sometimes they get switched, and there's a recent switch, and there's another switch before that, and it alters things a little bit. And there's reason for it. I think it had to do with domain kind of cleaning up this area. And you may notice some things. You shouldn't get too worried about it. It's not like you're going to fall off the templates or anything. But don't get too caught up in it, but just know those things are going on. Okay, that's enough of this stuff. I'm rambling on and off. I do want to say one thing. Every now and then I get some jokers to Metallic Man, and they just try to just throw harassment at me and calling me names and saying bad things to me. One of the guys I responded back because this guy here actually he says, "Do your worst. Send me to the cornfield." Shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that. Should not have done that. So there he is. He said, he didn't say, send me the cornfield. He said, do your worst. Send me the cornfield. My worst is a lot more than changing the color of your socks. I once, when I was living in Pago Pago, American Samoa, and I was driving from Tafuna. Tafuna was where my one office was, and I was driving, and there was a bunch of these dogs. They're wild dogs, and they're playing on the road. These were young ones. They were all pretty healthy and young, maybe 6 months old. They're all running all over the road, and in Samoans, they let the dogs run wild. It's a big problem. So what they do is they put the garbage up on these big poles. Put the garbage on poles so the dogs don't eat the garbage. But anyways, they're running around, and one of the cars hit one of the dogs, killed it. And sure as shit, it was right in front of me. So I went down and I picked up the dead dog and moved it to the side of the road. And later on, as I was heading back, somebody else had covered it with dirt, covered the body with dirt right there where I laid it. But the rest of the pack of dogs, they didn't even notice. They didn't even notice this was going on. When you are dealing with a higher level of punishment or a higher level of reorganization of your soul construct system as it pertains to experience obtainment, which is what I talk about when I'm talking about sending them off to the cornfield or sending them off to the garden. When that occurs, the rest of the world's not going to notice, but you will. It's very personal. And with that, people, take care. I hope you got something out of this meandering bunch of bullshit. But just remember, I believe in you guys. If you're watching this, there must be something in it that is meaningful to you. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's the idea that I used to brush my teeth with orange-flavored toothpaste. Now I can't find it anywhere. Who figures? All right, people, take care and know I believe in you. Bye-bye.